Yep, I think it looks like it is. So, in a mere 18 minutes, the Arlanda Express whisks over 3 million passengers every year from Sweden's national carbon neutral airport to the center of Stockholm. In a typical Scandinavian style, it uses modern, electric, environmentally friendly technology. The interiors were designed by Swedish tennis star Bjorn Borg, and I can't remember whether or not ABBA medleys were playing throughout the journey, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were. I also can't remember whether I ate Swedish meatballs, drank Swedish vodka, hailed a Volvo taxi to take me to the largest IKEA store in the world. I probably did. What I do remember is the escalator at Arlanda Airport, the longest, steepest escalator in the world. The Arlanda escalators take you to and from the terminal to the railway station. The welcoming entrance at the top lulls the unsuspecting traveller into thinking that a gentle descent awaits, yet before long, what feels like a near vertical journey into the very bowels of the earth snaps you into cold reality. So back in 2014, it was my final full meeting of the General Council of the European Chiropractors Union. And being November, it was perversely decided that Sweden would afford us the perfect climate for an ECU meeting. And so it was that we headed north. And so, with minimal packing of personal items, mainly thermal underwear, into a carry-on case, the bulk of my luggage was given over to about 25 kilograms of meeting papers, which were crammed into my cerise pink Samsonite suitcase. Now, having smoothly navigated customs, next stop was the baggage carousel, where a clean and jerk retrieval of my luggage had me toddling, ignorant and unsuspecting, on my way to the Arlanda Express platform. So the escalator beckoned as I confidently cruised towards it. With years of experience of being a suitcase pilot behind me, I maneuvered my cases onto the escalator, Samsonite in front, carry on behind. And within seconds, we were in full descent mode. The entrance to the platform at the bottom was visible as a tiny speck-like aperture, which looked about a mile away somewhere inside the Earth's core. Despite my luggage driving experience, I realized, as we all have at some stage, that one of my pieces, the carry-on behind me, was not squarely on the step. So turning to adjust it, I momentarily released my hold on the case containing the meeting papers. Big mistake. I turned back to find my Samsonite had taken on a mind of its own and had tilted tantalizingly out of reach. And to my absolute horror, it flipped like a deranged unmanned bobsleigh, began hurtling downwards. Thankfully, there was no one else on the escalator as my pink projectile accelerated away from me. All I could do was look hopelessly on. At a velocity of what must have been at least 5 meters per second, it reached the bottom. With a huge bang, it took flight, bounced up, and disappeared out of sight through the doorway to the platform. There was a deafening crash and then silence. I was left only halfway down the escalator at this stage, and with my left ventricle throbbing somewhere near to my epiglottis, I had no idea what would be in store for me when I finally was able to inspect the carnage that would await me. So I got to the bottom of the escalator, I stepped off and tiptoed through the doorway with trepidation at the potential sight of a sea of mangled passengers covered in crumpled meeting papers. An elderly Swedish couple, both in hats, coats, and gloves, stood silently staring at the clearly certifiable idiot that had just appeared before them. My Samsonite lay inexplicably intact behind them, and behind that was a framework of twisted steel. The man held the remains of the telescopic handle of my case and almost apologetically handed it to me. Without a word, he gently took his wife's arm and shuffled onto the platform. Still conscious of a heart rate of exceeding 300, I sheepishly retrieved my case and did the same. Not a word was exchanged. Less than 48 hours later, I did the return journey. Arriving at the airport terminal stop, I stepped off to be greeted by a scene from CSI, a mesh of twisted metal clad in yellow warning tape, with a sign in Swedish clearly admonishing the moron responsible for such wanton destruction. So why do I tell this story? Well, because life is full of unexpected twists and turns. And from being on a sound footing one day, we can find ourselves losing our balance the next. None of us really know what's around the corner. Few of us have a life that is completely predictable. In fact, one of the things that I suspect drew many people towards being a chiropractor was that it was anything but routine. Not knowing who would walk through the door, what symptoms they would present with, how we would be able to impact on their lives and make a difference, not knowing what colleagues we would meet along the way and what friendships would be forged that would last a lifetime. Wherever we were educated, whatever our backgrounds, chiropractic has gifted us a life less ordinary. 100 years ago, in 1924, chiropractors were in a difficult era. They were in the crosshairs of critics across the US and beyond. And one of these critics was a particularly vicious H.L. Mencken. Here he is, an American journalist who was famous in his day for being an opponent of many things, including economics, religion, and democracy. However, he reserved some of his most vitriolic writings for the chiropractic profession, which in 1924 he described as preposterous quackery. Chiropractic, he claimed, was akin to receiving a heroic pummeling from a retired piano mover. Any lout, he went on to say, with strong hands and arms, was equipped to be a chiropractor. So our history is filled with the stories of sacrifices that chiropractors have made in standing up for our profession. Persecution, discrimination, incarceration, men and women holding beliefs so strong that they were willing to give up their liberty and be sent to jail in pursuit of their right to practice chiropractic. These were not just occurrences in the early days of chiropractic. Many recognized and fought prejudice and injustice for decades, culminating in a landmark legal ruling in 1987 that was to help us turn a corner. So many have contributed decades of service to ensuring that our rights to practice as chiropractors have been secured, expanded, and defended. So now, in 2024, we celebrate unprecedented opportunities. There has never been a better time to be a chiropractor. And at the same time, our collective responsibilities as chiropractors have never been greater. Today, we find ourselves at a time where the burden of global disability from poor spinal health dominates all other forms of disability. We find ourselves at a time where around the world, tens of thousands continue to lose their lives to opioids and other prescription medications, victims of a misguided and cynical strategy to combat chronic pain. We find ourselves at a time where the ever-expanding aging population presents unique challenges to health systems. And we find ourselves at a time with a massive shortfall in the global health workforce. There's never been a greater need for health and healing that chiropractors can bring, both here in the UK and beyond. And like the patients that we encounter each day, each one of us in this room has trodden a different path to where we are today. And for those of us who are practitioners, whether we're practitioners of many decades or whether we're embarking on our exciting journey as health professionals and here as students of chiropractic. For me, this marks 34 years, and yes, this really is me. This marks 34 years since I proudly qualified as a chiropractor. When I set out on my chiropractic journey here in sunny Bournemouth at the tender age of 18 back in 1986, it was not because of some road to Damascus moment. I'd not been miraculously cured of an injury, disease, or impairment. I wasn't the fourth, fifth, or sixth generation of chiropractors destined to continue a family tradition. Google didn't exist, so I couldn't have looked it up. I couldn't just happen upon it in a random search. And I had no clue, really, about chiropractic and what it was to be a chiropractor. And unlike many of you, with every good reason to be where you are, I wobbled into chiropractic like Bambi on speed. I grew up in a farming community in the southwest of England. My father, who's here today, was and always had been a herdsman, and I was raised in an agricultural tied cottage. At school, in my community, it was often assumed that you would go into some form of agriculture. If you were not fortunate enough to have been born into a farming family, you would become a farm worker, an agricultural engineer, a tractor driver, or if you had the grades and aptitude, a veterinary surgeon. Well, I had neither, but what I could offer was curiosity, hope, optimism, and excitement. Now, I passed the Maserati Ferrari showroom when I was in Singapore just a couple of weeks ago, and it made me think of the aspirations of many new chiropractic graduates, rewards of a successful career, and the realization of dreams. Now, this wasn't the world that I grew up in. Exotic supercars did not grace the roads where I was raised. Single tracks with grass growing up in the middle. And this was the closest we got to traffic congestion. These were the posters on my wall, and these were the dream machines that we lusted after in rural North Devon. However, not wanting to spend my life behind the wheel of a John Deere and not destined to become a vet, I had to start looking at alternatives. And back in the day, there were two of us at North Devon College in the Directionless and Clueless Club, me and my friend Tom Staines. Neither of us really had a clue where we were heading. Our biology lecturer suggested chiropractic, a growing profession, good job prospects, and not in the least agricultural. So we both sent off for prospectuses for AECC. Everything looked promising. We excitedly discussed heading to Bournemouth, qualifying, and returning to our hometown, where, in tribute to our family names, we would proudly call our new health facility the Brown Staines Chiropractic Clinic. Well, thank goodness that never came to pass. Now, I've been blessed in my career. They say that your character is formed by the books you read and the people you meet. Now, I'm no bookworm, unless they have big fonts and lots of pictures, but I have made some amazing acquaintances and friendships. And I quickly learned that the way to make progress was to be the dumbest in the room. And this has never proved to be a difficult objective for me to fulfill. I feel humbled for delivering this lecture today when there are so many outstanding leaders present. So the sense of suffering from imposter syndrome is frequent and real. Now, chiropractic has come a long way in 129 years. Along with the rights that we now enjoy, including statutory regulation in every territory in Australia, every province in Canada, every state in the United States, and of course, here in the UK, we must recognize, embrace, and accept the expectations that modern society has placed on us as healthcare professionals. Medicine has advanced exponentially. Millions of lives have been saved as a consequence of scientific breakthroughs. From the primitive days of bloodletting to today's stem cell transplants, robot technology, and artificial intelligence, the pursuit of knowledge has shaped our societies. The world's scientists dedicate their lives to groundbreaking discoveries. Without life-saving medical advances, our existence would still be medieval. Let us not forget that research and a commitment to investigate, discover, and learn are indispensable attributes of every modern healthcare profession. and chiropractic is no exception. Research is the currency of our profession. We live in a world far removed from the pioneer days of the 1890s, where cures for all ailments were bottled and sold by snake oil salesmen at fairground stalls, and where extravagant claims devoid of credible evidence were fed to an unsuspecting, vulnerable, and ignorant public. This was a different age, unregulated, unlicensed, and unruly. And the irony is that those who were healing without drugs and surgery, such as chiropractors, were being sent to jail during a time when medical practices were sometimes quite bizarre. Milk transfusions were being promoted as a substitute for blood. Australians were being advised to lie inside a rotting whale carcass as a cure for rheumatoid arthritis. Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup, full of alcohol and morphine, was touted as a cure for babies with teething pain and diarrhea. And cocaine was the magic potion for hay fever. And of course, cigarettes were the best thing for asthmatics. So science has transformed the lives of us all. We now have access to untapped knowledge. Can you imagine now having to fill out a library request for every time you wanted to see a single research paper, which was the case when I was here at AECC? So much is available at the click of a mouse. But with the best will in the world, keeping up with the best available evidence is near impossible. How are we to survive when we're drowning in data? So aligning what we do with established science and current evidence has been an essential but sometimes painful transition over the past several decades. It's often said that everyone wants progress, but no one wants change. Moving from a comfort zone is never easy. Being willing to jettison outdated dogma and embrace contemporary evidence is challenging for some. Yet without such action, we remain rooted in a past age and deserving of criticism. It is, of course, an exercise of winning hearts and minds. One of the great strengths of chiropractic has been its history and its heritage. Yet our passion for history and heritage has also been our Achilles heel. Where we have allowed it to decelerate our progress, we have rightly been exposed to criticism. Exaggerated website claims of effectiveness, despite gaps in the evidence base, have seen mass complaints against chiropractors in Australia and also in the UK. Body shaming of normal variants and minute postural deviations in human anatomy have overplayed the gravity of patients' conditions. Imaging used as a tool to convince the vulnerable of the need to sign up to protracted programs of treatment. Amplification of the gravity of joint dysfunction in relation to human health. Trust and confidence in chiropractic are damaged when we allow unprofessionalism to go unchecked. And then there's the manipulation of our own. Like carnivorous prehistoric dinosaurs, practice management gurus roam the land, promising unconquerable success and chiropractic utopia. They devour their prey of debt-ridden early career chiropractors seeking direction and security. And this remains one of the great evils lurking in the dark shadows of our profession. But in 2024, in the United Kingdom and throughout the world, there are fewer and fewer unwitting, exploitable, suggestible, vulnerable patients. Information is instantly available. Patients are empowered by access to online information, and it is foolhardy to ever believe that a patient has not looked you up on Google before contacting you to book an appointment. The price of progress and chiropractic success is that we are scrutinized like never before. Every Facebook post, every tweet, every blog we write, every website claim that we make, every talk we give, we are being scrutinized. In a world of facts, alternative facts, and fake news, chiropractors are being held to a standard. And it's our obligation, and in fact, it's our duty to meet that standard. And I'm here to tell you that together as a profession, I believe we can. Now, not a day goes by without us hearing news items about climate change. In global healthcare, the climate is changing too. And that change is accelerating. The environment in which we're operating now is enormously different to that even of a decade ago. The context in which we are born, grow, learn, live, work, age, and die, the social determinants of health have evolved. Medical and health education has been revolutionized. In chiropractic, accreditation has set standards and competencies that have shifted the profession in a positive direction towards competency-based education. Just as we are warned that the global climate is hitting a tipping point, so must we recognize and plan for an imminent tipping point for chiropractic if we are to realize our potential and achieve success. Are we to rely on our history, or are we going to use the opportunity to step up, innovate, and be a key part of people's healthcare teams? Will we rely on yesterday's evidence and our belief systems, or will we seize the chance to be key players in tomorrow's healthcare systems? The world is waking up to the uncontrolled scourge of back and neck pain. We know that traditional mainstream medicine has been largely unsuccessful. While back pain doesn't kill, it causes misery for millions. In most countries around the world, back pain remains the greatest single cause of years lived with disability. There's no single cure, no magic bullet, and global data reminds us of the abject failure in dealing with spinal pain and disability. There's a growing consensus that we know what works and what doesn't. The test for us as a profession is whether we're prepared to accept inconvenient truths, jettison old ideas, and take bold steps to fill the void that still exists for the definitive non-surgical spine care experts. Emerging evidence has focused not simply on the biomechanics of acute and chronic low back pain, but has revealed startling insights into the fuller biopsychosocial elements, the drivers of chronicity, fear avoidance, catastrophization, depression, attitudes and beliefs, kinesiophobia. Add to that the global issues of over-imaging, over-reliance on medication of low value, and the tragedy that is opioid addiction. So we need to listen to pain research. It's increasingly telling us that back pain is not all in the back. It's not all about joint dysfunction anymore, or the presence of a prolapsed disc, or degeneration, or bad posture, or any one of the plethora of findings that for years we have attributed to back and neck pain. X-rays and MRI scans have convinced us that abnormalities are the roots of all evil, even though we know that pain-free people have them too. We know that just between 1% and 5% of all back pain is due to serious underlying pathology. Yet 40 to 60% of patients are still being referred by their GPs for MRI scans. And with incidentalomas being rife, experts tell us that 80% of MRI scans are probably useless. So when it comes to chronic pain, researchers now tell us that persisting back symptoms often occur because the fire alarm that's going on in our brain isn't switching off after the fire has been extinguished. This is why continuing to fill people up with paracetamol and opioids is so hopeless. We're treating a fire that isn't there. We now know that people with chronic back pain get depressed, and that depressed people get back pain. We now know that there are comorbidities that, if left unaddressed, will adversely affect outcomes. We now understand contextual factors are highly relevant. We cannot simply ignore the evidence that's not just coming from one source, but many. We need a whole health approach. The growing volume of evidence has caused us to be introspective, and that's been uncomfortable for many of us. What we thought we understood perhaps is not reality. And it's not just us. Spinal surgeons, general practitioners, osteopaths, physical therapists, chiropractors, any one of the many other professionals that have been part of the spine care marketplace have all been forced to re-examine their modus operandi. In the face of an expanding aging population and the monstrous costs of investigative technology and care of questionable effectiveness, the focus has to be on best value care and optimizing function through rehabilitation. Yet despite overwhelming evidence, when it comes to the spine, we remain somewhat in a status quo. Throughout the world, surgery continues to be overutilized. Prescribing habits are not changing anywhere near fast enough. Cement is still being injected into the back. Spinal injections remain a popular option. Evidence-based chiropractors and non-surgical solutions are still being vastly underutilized. So the holes are there for all of us to see. We need to fundamentally change the way we approach our patients who in 2024 are fundamentally different to those of 1895. Now in 2017, the World Federation of Chiropractic, the WFC, started a strategic planning exercise that would culminate in a plan that was adopted unanimously by its assembly of members in 2019 in Berlin. The core plan was underpinned by 4 pillars, which have become known as the EPIC principles. Using the hashtag BEPIC, the WFC advocates that all chiropractors are to be evidence-based, people-centered, interprofessional, and collaborative. So let's just spend a few minutes unpacking EPIC to explain why it really is our duty, our driver, and our future. So the E of EPIC is evidence-based practice. A few years ago, I had the honor of speaking on the subject of evidence-based practice at Oxford University, the oldest center of learning in the English-speaking world. Oxford University dates back to 1086. Some of the world's greatest leaders have been educated within its walls. Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, monarchs, heads of state, even Rowan Atkinson, better known as Mr. Bean. For any Harry Potter fans, the dining halls at Oxford University really are just like that. Just being there was an amazing experience. Now, in talking about evidence-based practice, I raised a few eyebrows when I revealed that my chiropractic education back in the 1980s was BS. A few more went up when I told the audience that medical education of the time was also BS. So was osteopathic education. So was physiotherapy education. Without a doubt, it was all BS. But before your jaws start incurring friction burns on the carpet, let me explain. When I talk about BS, I'm not referring to what over 90% of you in the room were probably thinking. I'm referring to this man, David Sackett, arguably one of the greatest epidemiologists ever, and the godfather of evidence-based medicine. And back in 1996, he published this article, Evidence-Based Medicine, What It Is and What It Isn't. All too often, evidence-based practice is misrepresented and completely mischaracterized. Critics oppose it because they think that all it means is that everything we do in chiropractic has to be supported by randomized controlled trials and systematic reviews and meta-analyses. Now, where such evidence does exist, it cannot be simply overlooked in preference to convenient low-level evidence, but to characterize evidence-based medicine as being wholly dependent on level 1 evidence would be wholly wrong. Evidence-based practice is a judicious integration of the clinician's experience and expertise, taking into account the values and preferences of the individualized care of patients, and using the best available scientific evidence. Now, what does this mean in practice for chiropractors? Well, it means a commitment to lifelong learning and a commitment to a better understanding of emerging science. It means seeking to be better and a willingness to move from the comfort zone in the face of new knowledge that challenges our preconceptions. It means not simply being clever, but accepting that as clinicians, we must be continually in pursuit of wisdom. It calls upon us as a profession to call out cherry picking of evidence. It calls upon us to reject fake news and the misrepresentation of research findings for the sake of convenience. It means a real investment in knowledge translation and a championing of work done by people such as my good friends from Canada, Carol Conciliere and Sean Thistle, who, in my humble opinion, are at the vanguard of knowledge transfer in chiropractic. What we so desperately need is a joined up approach to the synthesis of evidence into practice. And this is where our investment as a profession truly needs to focus. We owe it to our patients and we owe it to ourselves. We need to acknowledge that evidence is agnostic and that research coming from other professions is applicable often to what we do as chiropractors. Increasingly, we are seeing interprofessional research and research teams where the professional badges that people wear are discarded in favor of the skills and knowledge they bring as investigators. The walls are coming down. Take, for example, the Lancet series of low back pain papers published in 2018. Jan Hartviksen, a chiropractor and professor at the University of Southern Denmark, was selected as co-chair of the steering group. The resulting 3 papers took the spinal health world by storm, generated 15 million tweets, and validated what chiropractors have been saying for decades, that surgery is often useless in anything but the short term and the most severe cases, and that pharmaceutical interventions often confer very little benefit. These papers are gold, platinum even, for the chiropractic profession, yet their importance has been nowhere near emphasized enough. These papers need to be read by every chiropractor. Okay, some colleagues have got on their high horse a little bit for their criticism of the widespread overuse of diagnostic imaging. However, to reject what the rest of the world is telling us does not position us well. And more recently, in December last year, the World Health Organization published its long-awaited guideline for non-surgical management of chronic primary low back pain. The results really could not have been better for chiropractic. Therapeutic advice, prescribed exercise, spinal manipulative therapy, soft tissue techniques, needling therapies, psychological interventions, use of the biopsychosocial model were all recommended. The guideline also advocated against traction, many forms of medication, belts, braces, and supports. The WHO's focus on rehabilitation also positioned chiropractic well, with emphasis on maintaining function and a move away from pain. So this is our time. When it comes to research, we are living in unprecedented times. Never before have so many chiropractors committed their careers to research, and never before have so many chiropractors published in world-class journals. These people are moving the needle. They're positioning chiropractic on a global stage. They're contributing to trust and legitimacy and inclusion for chiropractic. Not only are we being invited to the party, we're also getting to sit at the table. We have Christine Gertz at Duke University, Brian Coleman at Yale, Ren Burton at Harvard, and Mike Schneider at Pittsburgh, and many more. Evidence is on our side. We simply cannot squander the opportunity that research is now gifting us to be not acknowledged as non-surgical spine care experts. But it means all of us working together and committing to be epic. Those of you in this room who are chiropractors are using your experience in the care of your patients. And I'm confident that chiropractors are among the very best in the world when it comes to listening to our patients and appreciating their individuality and uniqueness. We're already a good way along the track. Let's harness our skills and talents and be our evidence-based best. And so that brings us to P, people-centered care, our unrelenting duty to put patients at the very heart of everything we do as chiropractors. Winston Churchill famously said, "You make a living by what you get, you make a life by what you give." People wondered why the WFC revised the P in EPIC to people-centered, not patient-centered. Well, when the WFC put its strategic plan together, we consulted with a range of stakeholders. One of these stakeholders was the World Health Organization. The WFC is the only chiropractic organization to be a non-state actor in official relations with WHO. And this gives us unrivaled access to experts that will help us in developing our role as primary healthcare professionals. So the WHO was, of course, absolutely right. We need to be people-centered. Take World Spine Day, for example. Every year on October the 16th, the WFC coordinates a day of action to raise awareness of the global burden of spinal disorders and promote good spinal health. And this is for all professions. Although we coordinate it, it is for all professions globally. And we see all professions taking part, from neurological societies in Bangladesh to orthopedic surgeons in India. We've just heard today that the South African government has officially acknowledged World Spine Day as an official action day. So this year's theme is Support Your Spine. Last year our theme was Move Your Spine, and the year before that it was Every Spine Counts. We have a brilliant team of young people from our Africa, Pacific, European and North American regions coordinating World Spine Day, generating awareness and reaching out to populations. This is a people-centered activity. Over 750 organizations from all professions have signed up as affiliates. Now, every one of you, every chiropractor, every osteopath, every physiotherapist can show their commitment as leaders in spinal healthcare in their communities by going to worldspineday.org and getting involved. This is an opportunity for all of us to lead and for chiropractic to shine. Now, being people-centered, of course, incorporates being patient-centered, listening to the patient's point of view, involving them in decisions about their care, empowering them to be in control, recognizing them as unique individuals. This is where modern spine care is right now. Gone are the days of patients, families, carers, nurses going all dewy-eyed and hanging on the every word of the young, dashing male physician portrayed in countless episodes of Dr. Finley's casebook. Patients are savvy consumers. Like any product, they expect the product you deliver to have been rigorously tested for effectiveness. They expect it to be tailored to their individual requirements. They expect excellent customer service and a satisfactory remedy if things go wrong. And they're not shy about leaving a bad review if they're unhappy. No longer will patients tolerate a cookie-cutter approach to patient care. A one-size-fits-all model is one that is doomed to failure. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't adopt standard operating procedures, and it's essential that all well-run chiropractic clinics adopt good procedures. But when it comes to patients, honoring them as the individual human beings that they are is essential. So just stop for a moment and think about how we feel when we're made to feel special, when we're acknowledged, listened to, remembered, valued, when our doctor shows a genuine interest in our lives, our families, and our work, when our suffering is acknowledged and plans to fix us take account of our individual circumstances. When health professionals are honest with us and readily admit when others may have a better solution to our problems, when our backgrounds and cultures and perspectives are respected, how do we feel? Well, we feel special, we feel valued, and we feel connected. So let's make a commitment to being people-centered as part of being epic chiropractors. And in the words of my hero and stunt double, Barry White, patients should be our first, our last, our everything. The eye of EPIC is interprofessional. One of the biggest criticisms in healthcare is that it isn't joined up. Specialities exist in vacuums. Systems of the body are treated as separate, distinct entities, devoid of connectivity. Health professionals often don't talk to each other and are fiercely protective of their turf. Departments are isolated and boundaries are delineated. We often refer to this as siloed care. Now, silos are in no one's interests. Patients find themselves repeating their case history countless times and undergoing repeated tests and procedures. Like a silver ball in a pinball machine, they're pinged, spun, and ricocheted around hospitals and clinics. It's no surprise that they are left dizzy and confused. Now, interprofessional care breaks down barriers and destroys silos. It acknowledges the critical importance of a joined-up, holistic approach that patients so desperately crave. It takes account of the fact that our amazing bodies are a magnificent amalgamation of interdependent systems. It helps us to place in context the myriad factors, contextual factors that are the influencers, the promoters, and the barriers of how we respond to care. And until recently, history has not afforded chiropractors great opportunities to be parts of these teams. But today, here in 2024, this is not the case. Like never before, chiropractors are embracing an interprofessional approach as part of being EPIC. Who would have ever believed that in 2024, chiropractors would be delivering care as part of multidisciplinary teams? Who would have dreamt that chiropractors would have been part of the official medical services of the Olympic Games? Who would have thought that chiropractors would be part of hospital-based spine care teams, and in some cases, directing them? And who would have thought that chiropractors would now be routinely establishing clinics hosting the widest range of medical and allied health specialties? This is where we need to be. Isolationism is dead. And those who continue to advocate it will restrain this profession like a big rusty anchor dragging along the seabed. Being part of an interprofessional team is not just for the chiropractic elite. Everyone can engage in working with other spine care and health professionals. It matters not whether you're in a large multidisciplinary practice or you practice as a lone practitioner. Reaching out, corresponding with other physicians, attending meetings, and building your network will raise your game and your status in the spine care world, and patients will love you for it. And let's commit to playing nicely in the sandbox. By discarding the baggage of the past, we can embrace a brighter future. By seeing what's possible, we can overcome challenges. By focusing on the needs of our societies, our communities, and our patients, we can assure our place as valued members of the spine care teams within global health systems. And as the saying goes, you will get everything in life that you want by helping other people to get what they want. But no one will tell you that being part of an interprofessional spine care team is easy. No one agrees all of the time. It can be frustrating. There can be times when you wonder whether it's all really worth it. You'll roll your eyes on a regular basis. Rule 101 is to leave your ego at the door. Yes, we bring skills and expertise to the table, not least of which are the strong psychomotor skills honed from years of practice, which make us superb at manual therapy. But when it comes to working interprofessionally, a healthy dose of humility never goes amiss. The C of EPIC is collaborative. We've already touched on the value of chiropractors working with others. So what do we mean by collaborative care when it comes to being EPIC? Well, collaborative care champions the role of chiropractors, committed to positive engagement with patients, carers, and families. It's about recognizing the value of autonomy, self-direction, shared decision-making, and empowerment, and not promoting dependence on us or anyone else. It's about chiropractors as active participants in public health, collaborating in global programs to enjoy healthier, happier, and more active lives. We know so much more about the management of spinal pain, disability, and health than we have ever done at any point in our history. So let's harness this knowledge with innovation and acknowledgement that we're all in this together. But collaboration is much more than just that. For us to succeed as a profession, we must collaborate with each other, our classmates, our colleagues, even our competitors. Collaboration between researchers, academics, policymakers, politicians, and practitioners to seize the opportunities before us and that will allow us to realize our collective potential. Events like the BCA conference that bring chiropractors together and gift us the opportunity to enjoy priceless discussions at the breaks, in the corridors, and at the bar. Epic chiropractors coming together, sharing a vision, and respecting the contributions of others. When we give each other a hand, we rise together. Evidence-based, people-centered, interprofessional, and collaborative. Our epic future depends on collaborating to raise the bar. When we collaborate, we win. When we commit to epic, we commit to a sustainable future of hope, optimism, and service, and a building of the cultural authority that will ensure a sustainable future. Next year celebrates 100 years of the BCA. Over the past few years, a huge amount has been achieved. Let next year's centenary be a springboard for further change, engagement, and success. We have so much to celebrate and so many great people doing marvelous things for chiropractic. We have countless opportunities that our ancestors could never have imagined. We need to be bold and innovative and prepared to take our place as the spinal healthcare experts in the healthcare system. And as I close, it would be wrong not to refer to what, in my view, has been one of our greatest enablers of success. We have in the past few years witnessed the emergence of a cadre of leaders that have changed the chiropractic landscape and have built on the amazing experiences of our past leaders. At the WFC in 2016, we did not just see the first female members of our executive committee at the WFC, but in 2018, we celebrated in Dr. Vivian Kill, our first female president, a young, extremely talented and determined leader who was fully deserving of the accolades that came her way. At the same time, our vice president was Michelle Myers, in my opinion, one of the finest minds in chiropractic today. We have had people of unprecedented diversity gracing the WFC board. And in 2019, Dr. David Pies from Saskatchewan in Canada was welcomed as our first Indigenous board member. Just last week, when I was in Montreal, we welcomed Kendra Da Silva as our first president from the WFC's African region. Our committees are comprised of those with many years of experience and some with many few, united by an infectious enthusiasm and a commitment to serve and enhance the landscape of our profession. Equity, diversity, and inclusion should never be just a policy sitting on a shelf. And at the WFC, we are working hard to consistently improve and ensure that EDI is part of everything we do. So in chiropractic, the climate is changing and the provision of healthcare is transforming. Let's all be players in this transformation. We must all be leaders. No one should be made to feel that their gender, race, religious belief, orientation, or background disqualifies them from leading and making a difference. Without championing the attributes of leadership, titles count for nothing, and we fail. Humanity, humility, integrity, kindness, persistence, inner strength, and vision are but a few. As chiropractors, we have a duty to lead within our clinics, with our patients and the teams and within our communities. As we forge a clear path for chiropractic into the future, let us go forward together. Let's be proud, let's be bold, let's be epic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Brown, for your inspiring lecture. We've got colleagues and an audience online as well. So just looking at the time at the moment, if we can maybe have one question from here, one question online. We haven't got any questions, that's fine, from online. I'll open up the floor. Is anyone here? I would like to ask Richard, if I can spare one question. And if not, then you can obviously ask questions later, and I invite you downstairs to the Togglers Bar, where we have another reception afterwards, and you can have a more one-to-one conversation. But thank you very much for such an inspiring lecture. I've got one question, and I think I know roughly the answer. You've mentioned the journey of chiropractic and the trials and tribulations and where you are now, and you're at the party, you're at the table. You have a vast, diverse group of leaders, future leaders, through all the organisations. Where do you see chiropractic, or what are your hopes for chiropractic, rather, in the next 10 years?
Well, our vision within the WFC is that all people of all ages and all nations have access to chiropractic care so that populations can thrive and reach their full potential. That is the vision that the WFC has, and it's one which I, of course, subscribe to wholeheartedly. I think the more chiropractic becomes embedded within health systems, the better. We're seeing that in some countries, in Switzerland, in Denmark, and Norway in particular. Chiropractic is very much of the healthcare, part of the healthcare scene. And in fact, our WFC Congress, a quick plug, is going to be in Copenhagen in 2025, and we're very much looking forward to that there. So I think integration into health systems is the way that we expand. I will be in Geneva from Sunday. The World Health Assembly is next week, and I will be there for the full week. And I have a number of meetings planned with various stakeholders. It's attended by ministers of health, the WHO team, and I'll be working with them to try and advance chiropractic and what we can do to assist, how we can be part of the solution. It's crazy to go in there and think we can change the world, but we need to position ourselves as being an indelible part of the solution. And I think that's the way to go forward. So in 10 years' time, I would like to see us being part of universal health coverage for countries around the world, particularly in low and middle income countries that don't have access to regular healthcare services of any description at all. There are still millions of people throughout the world who have no access to any health systems whatsoever. We need to change that, and we can be part of that solution.
Thank you very much. So can I invite you to give Richard another round of applause, please? It's a quick token of our appreciation. I have now one hand, so we'll have to do this twice. Just a little present for you.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's something to drink on the way home.
Absolutely. And then when you want to write some more notes.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. Okay, that's very kind. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kevin.
So I'd just like to say thank you to Julie Northam and Lisa as well for organising tonight's event. The next professorial lecture will be in the autumn, I think, and that will be Professor Stuart Cottrell, who's one of our heads, or head of school. We have other visiting profs in the audience as well, so we're don't go anywhere. We're going to make sure that you're on the list as well over the next few months. So thank you very much for attending online. Thank you for attending here. And again, if you want to meet with us downstairs, you're more than welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.